EVTN News, the self-identified #1 news program on YouTube and on the entire internet, no matter what streaming site you use, whether it be some streaming site that no one ever uses or a heavily censored um, streaming site. So the first story I want to talk about today is sort of following up on a story that I talked about last week. This was Father Santa Maria of Costa Rica. He said the Novus Ordo in Latin, and he was suspended for saying the Novus Ordo in Latin. So it wasn't even the Latin Mass. It was the Novus Ordo, and he was sent to the loony bin. He was sent for psychological evaluation. So, Father Dave Nix, he had a comment on this Costa Rica priest. He says Father Santa Maria probably does not yet realize that the bishop's decision to send him to the funny farm has nothing to do with his mental health or even liturgical practices. It is to break him and to shame him for daring to be Catholic. Yes, a Catholic. Should he obey the command to go to the monkey house, they will find a reason he can never return to active ministry. Should he disobey, he will be permanently suspended for disobedience. There is no way out for a traditional priest to maintain both his conscience and his ministry in a diocese run by modernists. Thinking otherwise is as silly as an Athanasian priest thinking he will be given quarter by an Arian bishop. So this is certainly a conflict for a lot of priests. Now, this specific priest, Father Santa Maria, he said, I will, he kind of had the discussions with his bishop, and he said, oh, I will obey my bishop, and I will go to this psychological evaluation place. Now, in the United States, there's this one place called St. Luke's. I think it's near Maryland. It's a very popular place where bishops send conservative priests for psychological evaluations, sensitivity training, that kind of garbage. But yeah, I mean, it is a strange predicament that diocesan priests find themselves in, where the bishop hates them if they're Catholic, and for doing Catholic things, the bishop tries to shut them down. Now, these diocesan priests don't realize they have leverage. That leverage is they can threaten to quit. And what's the bishop going to do then? Is the bishop going to cover the parishes that the priest has been covering? And with the lack of vocations and all that nonsense, all that stuff, the bishop's going to be placed in a really difficult situation. So that's that. It's kind of sad, but and then also I do want to say about these priests that say, oh, obedience. No, if your bishop's sending you for psychological evaluation for being a traditionalist, you need to quit. You need to turn in your resignation papers and say, I refuse to be a priest under this modernist bishop. Um, Maybe don't speak out that strongly until you're granted a transfer out of that diocese, but request a transfer to a religious order. I don't know, not any religious order, but find a good one. It's really not that hard. Okay. Moving on, Cardinal Stupid, he wrote that Mass celebrate on the basis of the 1962 Missal remains authorized in his diocese. Now, Cardinal Stupid, he's a Francis cardinal. So what's that say whenever Francis's cardinals are opposing Francis's own directives? And he's not. I don't necessarily believe that Cardinal Stupid is a traditionalist. I think he's probably more inclined towards the Francis Church. So this is very interesting. A lot of these bishops, cardinals, they're really kind of shaky on the Francis Church at this point, especially with Francis's health in decline. It seems like some of them are kind of distancing themselves from Pope Francis, and in this case, rightfully so. Sort of an off, kind of a little bit off topic, and I do want to mention here on this channel that we basically talk about everything. Not quite everything, but we talk about a lot of different things, even stuff that popular Catholic media won't cover. So Tim Flanders was hired as the editor of 1 Peter 5, and Kennedy Hall was hired at LifeSite. So if you watch the Meaning of Catholic YouTube channel, they have a weekly program with Tim Flanders and Kennedy Hall, and I follow that quite a lot. And so I was interested to hear this news. Now, 1 Peter 5, it was purchased by Crisis Magazine from Steve Skojec. And I don't know what Crisis necessarily plans to do with it, but it seems like they're going to let Tim Flanders sort of run that end of the business, and they'll kind of make the profits. They already asked for money from 1 Peter 5, and they always do that. When you go to that site, they have a pop-up that says, please donate. Anyway, yeah, Kennedy Hall being hired at LifeSite is pretty interesting because LifeSite News has a very strong Canadian base. So what's his name? John Henry Weston lives in Canada, as well as some of the other employees of LifeSite. And so it's a really interesting dynamic at LifeSite News. And so I think, usually they have some good stuff. And I'm glad that they break certain stories. I always, reference some of their stories in my EVTN news. So certainly be sure to check out the description of this video where you can find links to a lot of the stories that I'm talking about. So moving on to another topic, the FSSP and Institute reps. The FSSP superior said that he was not summoned to Rome. And I don't really get it. Like, was he summoned to Rome or not? Because there's rumors that he was summoned to Rome. People are saying, yeah, he definitely was summoned to meet with the Vatican. And he's saying, no, I wasn't. There was a National Catholic Register article about how these traditionalist orders, the 3 traditionalist orders, the FSSP, Institute of Christ the King, and Institute of the Good Shepherd, they were kind of a breakoff from the SSPX, how they would meet this week, I believe. And the article says, well, there has been speculation over further Vatican restrictions on the Institute's Father Komorowski. He's the superior of the FSSP. He stressed that the planned discussion was not based on the unconfirmed reports, but added that these have made the meeting more urgent and may have even accelerated it. But anyway, the FSSP, so one of the big differences between the FSSP and the SSPX is that the FSSP tries to, I guess, what I would say, dialogue with the modernists. And so they have a way of saying things in modernist language to the modernists. Like they speak to the modernists in their own language while not compromising the Catholic faith. So that's just something to consider there. But then whenever the modernists come full force and try to destroy the FSSP, we'll see what happens. Bishop Dalys of Spokane, Washington. You got to read between the lines of his statement. So it's a kind of a longer statement. Let me read it and see what you think. He says the diocese will follow state mandates regarding jobs of education personnel, and these mandates both in parish schools and churches. Bishop Dalys noted that we continue to comply with Governor Inslee's mandate that all school employees receive one of the approved jobs. The state recognizes 2 exemptions from this mandate. So here we go. He says, oh yeah, we'll continue to comply with all mandates. But then he says the first is a medical exemption that one may obtain through his or her physician. There you go. The second is a religious exemption, which for us as Catholics rests on the fact that a properly formed conscience is inviolable. Anyway, in his letter, Bishop emphasized the role of an individual's conscience in church teaching on matters where a person has moral and legal freedom to choose the course of action. Second Vatican Council emphasized that the conscience is the most secret core and sanctuary of man. While the Church seeks to form and mold consciences of the faithful, each person has, by virtue of his or her identity as a human person, the right to act in conscience, a liberty the Church respects and upholds. A Catholic school employee could therefore exercise his or her right to a religious exemption. This exemption places the burden on the individual's conscience rather than on church approval. So basically what I just read, it seems to suggest, now Bishop Dalys saying, oh yeah, we're complying with all the government regulations and everything, all the government requirements. And he said, well, there is a religious exemption, and we are, these teachers under the diocese are at a Catholic school, so you could follow your conscience like Vatican II says and give yourself an exemption. So, I mean, I don't know. I thought it was pretty interesting, though. You just got to read between the lines of a lot of these statements and see what the bishops have to say. Of course, he could have just rejected it and said, yep, we're not going along with it. But I don't know. Read between the lines anyway. Pope John Paul I is moving closer to sainthood. Now, this was in an American Magazine article, and it said he's likely to be beatified next year, which will expedite the process for declaring him a saint, his canonization. And this would make it every single Vatican II pope has been named a saint in the Novus Ordo Church. And that would be very interesting. Now, John Paul I had, I think it was like 33 days as pope. So he had a very short papacy. He wasn't able to do much. But I don't even know if I would dispute necessarily his canonization. If he is a martyr, is he a martyr? And I know the people in the Vatican don't look at it that way. Now, there was certainly speculation he was poisoned, speculation that he was going to investigate the Vatican Bank. And if that's the case, I mean, would that make him a martyr? I don't know. Maybe. But it's basically, it sets the stage. The Vatican needs to canonize Vatican II. They need to, because otherwise, if you look at the statistics and the catastrophic implications of Vatican II, people might suggest otherwise. They might suggest it was a mistake, but you got to canonizing these popes. Now, if you look at the popes who were canonized in the last 500 years before Vatican II, there might have been a few. St. Pius X. When was St. Pius V? Was that even 500 years? So the Church has not canonized very many popes, especially before Vatican II. And after Vatican II, it's going to be it's 3 right now, and it's going to be 4. And that thanks to the simplified sainthood process by John Paul II. Now, what does this suggest? Because you know the statistics, you see the statistics. The Church, I don't know that it's ever seen such a decline in Catholics, like a percentage decline in the number of Catholics who believe in the Catholic faith, the number of Catholics who attend Mass, except after Vatican II. So after Vatican II, the substantial decline that we're seeing in the Church, I don't know that we've ever seen that in any era of Church history. And we're canonizing all the popes. What does that say? There's a priest who refused communion to a dog. This is a pretty funny post. I thought you might be entertained by this. Father James Goins of St. Thomas More University Parish in Norman, Oklahoma, was reported to a hotline for refusing to give communion to a dog. And he said he had to write an incident report and provide witnesses for this incident. Some lady wanted him to give communion to her dog, and he refused. Okay, that's pretty crazy. Goins says he has seen many things during Mass. A man vaping, women in beach dresses, men with hats who almost always push back when asked to remove it. So, have you ever seen a man vaping in your church? I don't know. I think that's pretty inappropriate. We're getting to Cardinal Stupid. Okay. So, Taylor Marshall did a big video on this. Cardinal Stupid banned the Hail Mary and the St. Michael prayer after a Mass. So this, on August 28th, Father Emmanuel, he said about, and I guess in a video, about how Cardinal Stupid prevented them from, or requested that they not say the St. Michael prayer and the Hail Mary after Mass. And Bishop Strickland responded with a tweet saying, "I encourage all priests in our diocese to pray the St. Michael prayer and a Hail Mary or Mary and hymn after Mass. Certainly it should be after the Mass is concluded. These prayers can strengthen all who are praying together towards a deeper reverence." So Cardinal Stupid becomes very concerned about liturgy for once. Okay, great. Well, after Father Emmanuel Torres Fuentes, after he had, I don't know if he uploaded this video, but this video was shared after he had spoke about that. The pastor of the church issued a correction, and we'll discuss this correction here. He offered an explanation. He said this pastor is Father John Trout. He said the faithful are always welcome to gather in church for personal prayer as individual or as a group. At the same time, in accord with sound liturgical practice, yeah, that's the only time they care about liturgy, and in keeping with archdiocesan norms, which I personally confirmed with the Cardinal, the recitation of prayers must never interfere with, interrupt, or distract from the public liturgy of the church. The St. Michael prayer was part of the liturgy up until like 1970 or so. It was the late 60s, until Paul VI banned it. Nor can it ever become an imposition on the rest of the faithful in the church who have the right to remain at the end of Mass to pray privately as they wish. How many faithful remain to pray privately after Mass? Really? It is also important that such prayers must foster unity of the church. There we go, buzzword, unity, which is guaranteed by the successor of Peter, for whom we never fail to show our deepest respect and devoted support as our Holy Father. So the statement concludes by stating that Torres Fuentes wishes to state that he misspoke at a recent Mass when he falsely attributed statements to Cardinal Stupid. For this reason, the video of that Mass has been removed to avoid any confusion. Okay, so the pastor made a correction of this associate pastor, and the pastor spoke for this other priest. This priest did not apologize. The pastor basically he wrote an apology for him. So I don't think this pastor and so he said he falsely attributed statements to Cardinal Cupich. Well, the pastor spoke with Cardinal Cupich, and the Cardinal Cupich told him not to say the St. Michael prayer and the Hail Mary after Mass. What else? I mean, this is a bunch of garbage. This pastor, Father John Trout, this is pathetic. Okay, what else? It's basically, so when he talks about, the prayers must foster the unity of the church, which is guaranteed by the successor of Peter. So basically, he's implying that Father Torres Fuentes is against Pope Francis. So this is interesting. Okay. All right, let's move on. Monsignor Guido Marini, demoted from the Master of Pontifical Liturgical Celebrations. So this Monsignor was in charge of liturgical celebrations at the Vatican. He was appointed as the Bishop of Tortona, Tortona, Italy, which means there will be a new bishop determining liturgical celebrations. So will there be a papal clown mass with the new person who's appointed? I don't know. And we're going to Puerto Rico. This is a U.S. territory. 6 of Puerto Rico's 7 Catholic bishops have announced they will begin separating seating at Mass between the jabs and the jab-nots. The rotten bishops also announced that all priests must be jabbed, and Bishop Fernandez of Arecibo declared the opposite in a recent letter. So we have 1 good bishop, 6 bad bishops. So there's 7 bishops and only 1's Catholic on the island. Maybe all 6 should resign and the 1 Catholic bishop can take over the entire island. That'd probably be a good idea, because I think, okay, yeah. So I think that's pretty interesting there. We need to resist these people. And I'm seeing someone in the comments who's trolling this channel, so that's interesting. No thanks to your comments here. Basically criticizing Taylor Marshall. Not everyone has to like Taylor Marshall, but the trolls come out and they have a lot of interesting stuff to say. But we oppose the Church of Pachamama. We oppose the virus religion, on this channel, and I just occasionally we get trolls, but it's very interesting to see. So anyway, all of us, we just need to resist this virus church. We need to resist this this crazy Pachamama church, and we're not going to stand for it. So it's very interesting. Just stand up against corruption, stand up against these faithless bishops, stand up against these these people that are in the Church of Pachamama, because guess what? The Church of Pachamama, there's very little support. They're the ones that stay at home. They're the ones that, they're the ones that, I don't know, are they the real schismatics? It's hard to say. But anyway, this has been EVTN News. We identify as the #1 news program on the internet. Thank you so much for watching. We are the laity, and we will not be silent.